Hey friends, today we're going to be reading the story of Joseph out of Nightlight Tales. So it's a shorter version than the one you're gonna find in the Bible. If you want to read the whole thing, it starts at the very end of Genesis around chapter 37. So if you want to read that with your mom and dad, please do. But because of time today, I'm just going to read the shortened version. And what I want to kind of get you to understand and have you learn from this is that life isn't always fair, and good things happen when we don't deserve them, and bad things happen too when we don't deserve them, right? And the story of Joseph really illustrates one of my favorite verses, and that verse is Romans 8:28, which says, "We know that in everything God works for the good of those who love him." So that means when bad things happen to us and things aren't fair, we can be confident and have faith that God is going to be using that thing for good. And that good thing, that might take a little time, and you'll see that with Joseph. Like, things aren't fair in his life, and it took a really long time before it really made sense why God let him go through some hard things. So without any further ado, here is the story of Joseph and his brothers. "Look, brothers," Joseph shouted. So here's Joseph. "Look, brothers," Joseph shouted. "Isn't it wonderful?" He spun around, showing off his brand new coat. "Father gave it just to me." "Humph," Simeon snorted. "That's the ugliest coat I've ever seen." "Me too," Levi added. "I wouldn't wear that if it were the last coat on earth." The brothers were jealous of Joseph because he was father's favorite, and he never stopped bragging about it. And now they were furiously angry over that beautiful coat. So Joseph's brothers didn't really think that the coat was ugly, but have you ever seen something that someone else had and you want to not let them know that you really want it, so you pretend like you don't like it? That's what they were doing. So really they liked it, but they were really jealous. They were being jealous. They wanted that thing that Joseph had. And the reason Joseph had it was because he was father's favorite. So they were really upset, because like if your brother or sister is the clear favorite, that would make you feel kind of sad, right? So I think they felt angry and sad and jealous. And immediately Joseph's jealous brothers ripped the coat off his back and threw him into a deep, deep pit. Yikes. So they took his coat and threw him in the pit. "Help me, brothers," Joseph cried. "Please save me." But his brothers pretended not to hear. Just then, a group of traders came by. Judah had an idea. "We shouldn't kill Joseph. Let's sell him to these strangers." "Good thinking, Judah," his brothers agreed. So they sold their younger brother to the merchants for 8 ounces of silver. The merchants took Joseph to Egypt and sold him, and he had to work as a slave. So remember how I said that things were going to get hard for Joseph? These are some of the hard things. So he got sold by his own brothers. So his brothers weren't treating him very nice. And it's not Joseph's fault that he was the favorite, right? He didn't do anything wrong. And then he became a slave. And to be a slave means you work for no money and you can't leave. You don't choose to work for that person. They make you. And you're not paid. And you're not always treated very nice. But in time, Joseph had his share of troubles, and he ended up in jail. So now, after becoming a slave, Joseph went to jail. And the reason for that is that the person he was sold to, Potiphar, his wife lied about something that Joseph did, but he didn't actually do that thing. But God never forgot Joseph. He gave Joseph a way to help the king of Egypt, and the king rewarded Joseph by making him a powerful leader. So he was able to help Pharaoh. So God led him to help the king. So now he became a powerful leader. So see, God is letting good things happen to him too. So all these bad things happened, and now some good things are starting to happen to Joseph. Let's see what happens next. "And many years later, a great famine or a hunger filled the land, and everybody had to come to Joseph in Egypt for their food." So Egypt was the only place that had any food, because they had saved up food during some times a really good harvest. So like all their stuff grew, but now there wasn't any food. So one day Joseph's brothers came and bowed down before him. "Kind master," they said, not knowing it was their long-lost brother that they had sold off, "please help us or we will starve to death." But Joseph said, "Brothers, it's me." And Joseph, his brothers cried, "Please forgive us for all the terrible things we did to you." And Joseph kissed them all and said, "Don't worry, brothers. God took all the bad things that happened and used them all for good." So that's the shortened version of the story of Joseph. But I think the thing we can learn from that story is sometimes things aren't fair and bad things happen. But even in the midst of all the bad stuff that happened to Joseph, he was not treated well by his brothers. He was sold into slavery. He went to jail. God used that for good. God was allowed Joseph to be put in a position where he could help other people. He was made a leader by the king of Egypt, the Pharaoh, so he could help his family. God was with Joseph the entire time, and I think that's an important reminder for us going through our lives, that even when things don't really make sense and seem unfair, that God is always working and always with us. So I'm going to leave you with that, and yeah, bye y'all.